Oh, God.
What is up, YouTube? Hey, everyone. Thanks so much for joining us live following the United States match day 2 in the Paris Olympics against Germany. The United States, they pick up the win, and we're here to chat about it alongside Sandra Herrera and Darian Jenkins. I'm Lisa Carlin. Sandra, you came correct today with the hat. You look good.
I said that if they kept it up in the second half, that I would come on here, rock a beret. Not only did they keep it up, they got a fourth goal. I had to rock the beret. This little thing
Did you
popped up.
also get a croissant?
No, I'm lacking. Someone wants to hook me with a croissant. I will down that too.
Maybe we just got to go to Paris for that one because it's better in Paris. But things are looking pretty good for the Americans right now in Paris. Darian, initial reactions of this match for you?
Woo! They dominated. I think we've been really critical. Well, myself, I've been critical. They haven't been tested enough. They haven't dealt with a team that's really going to press them and ask questions. And I think we saw that especially in the first half, but we came out on top. Here for it.
We sure did. 4-1 for the United States. Thanks, everyone, for joining us live on YouTube. We're going live on YouTube following every single U.S. match. So thank you for joining us. We are going to chat about the entirety of the match. You are not going to want to miss this at all. Hey everyone, welcome into Attacking Third on Golazo Network. Immediately following the United States 4-1 win over Germany in their match day 2 of the Paris 2024 Olympics, the U.S. pick up a win, 3 more points to top their Group B standings, and they also do it in very exciting fashion, winning 4-1 over the Germans. Alongside Sandra Herrera and Darian Jenkins, I'm Lisa Carlin, bringing you all the analysis and recap following every single U.S. match at these Paris Olympics. Let's start with initial reactions, Darian, for you. The U.S. are coming off their second win in this group stage, and it looked different this time. 4-1. They did concede their first goal under Emma Hayes, but D, for you, what are your initial reactions of this U.S. win?
First of all, that's insane. The first goal they've conceded under Emma Hayes at the Olympics against Germany. Not a bad setup for the U.S. I think they did really well. They came out hot. I think Germany did a really good job penetrating when they were in that mid to low block and then took their times to counter against the U.S. and kind of poke some holes, especially in that modified 3-back where it was Davidson, Girma, and Fox. I think they caused some chaos, but the U.S. was able to overcome it, which is the biggest victory of the night to me. They were tested. They handled it. They scored more goals. They looked dynamic. They still looked hungry until the last minutes of the game. Lynn Williams comes in and scores. I think this just shows that this is a team to be feared even more so than before, and that they're here for a challenge. So I love it. I love that they took down the Germans.
I'm just going to put all of us on blast because we did our goal predictions following U.S. versus Zambia, and we all absolutely got it wrong. But Sandra, you got it the most wrong. You thought Germany was going to win 1-0.
You got it the most wrong. Listen,
I'm sorry. I have to hold you
a team
accountable.
effort everywhere, even here on A3. We all lost. Okay, you too.
But Sandra, ultimately, U.S. got the win over Germany. I mean, what stood out to you from the U.S.'s performance?
Yeah, response, continuity. I mean, we were talking about that Zambia game. Even as they had a blowout, even as they collected those 3 points, we talked about that second half specifically about areas of improvement, that they should have walked away with more goals, even if they had a good performance. Not only did they have some of that continuity today, I like that Emma Hayes we could see it in the game plan that was preached and that was planned for in this match. The not as active substitution windows in this one, making sure that this sort of ideal starting 11 still was the group to kind of get it done. And we're witnessing the beginning of something really special here. I think for a little while now, the mix of Smith, Rodman, Swanson, I think you can extend that to others is in terms of Shaw, Macario, players who are not active right now for this team in the Olympics, but kind of that next gen type of players, the ones who have got next. But these last 2 games, especially this very definitive win against Germany, they've got right now, they're absolutely solidified themselves as the present of this U.S. women's national team attack.
This is truly the first test that the U.S. has faced of a top 5 ranked team, a top 10 ranked team, even leading up to the Olympics and under Emma Hayes, and against a German side that is coming off a 3-0 win in their first match day in this Olympics. We're going to test the U.S. And we weren't necessarily sure how exactly, but they tested them. And we're going to break that all down. But first, let's go over the starting 11s for both of these sides. For Germany, it was Ann-Katrin Berger in goal, Roch, Hedring, Hendrick, and Gwynn across the back line, Buell and Brand, the wide wingers, and Alex Pop and Minga in the midfield role as the 2 center mids, Schuler and Nuskin up top. Meanwhile, for the United States, under Emma Hayes, no changes from the U.S.'s first match day. So Alyssa Nair in goal, Crystal Dunn, Tierna Davidson, Naomi Girma, and Emily Fox across the back line, Sam Coffey, Rose Lavelle, and Lindsay Horan in the midfield, with Mallory Swanson, Sophia Smith, and Trinity Rodman starting up top. Dee, were you shocked that we didn't get any changes from the first match?
I wasn't. I thought this is the game where you really want to have the strongest, your pinnacle of the starting 11 out against this Germany team who you know was going to test you and try to expose the areas that maybe other teams haven't taken advantage of, which is that 3-back, the gaps in between that, when we overplay it a little bit in the middle of the park, and how can teams transition. So having the starting 11 to be able to problem solve throughout the game and build even more of that chemistry that they've needed against a tougher opponent, I understood why she kept them. I was curious why there weren't subs sooner, though. That is my only question going into the rest of the tournament. I think we're starting to see even tired legs today in the 65th, 70th minute, players that have had a lot of miles on their legs. You're going to see that happen more and more as the tournament goes on. So for me, that's a little bit of a question mark I have going into the next match.
Yeah, I mean, that is not a wrong question mark to have. We did see at the end of the first half, defender Tierna Davidson for the United States go down with a bit of a leg injury into a tough tackle. So Emily Sonnet slotted into the center back role alongside Naomi Girma. But then the subs didn't come until the 85th minute, Sandra. Did the subbing cadence stick out to you at all?
A little bit. It did make me wonder if some of those lessons that they were trying to take from that first game was perhaps how those earlier substitution windows against Zambia maybe disrupted flow a little bit. And that's not uncommon, right? In some games when we get to watch these things happen during major international tournaments. But I do wonder if there was a little bit of like, here is the solution to make sure that we keep things going. And part of that is sort of keeping the players who have been playing together like out on the pitch. So how is that going to maybe affect things for the final match day? I think that's going to be the question mark here. I think at this point between the front 3, I would even argue the midfield today. I think we saw some of the legginess, questionable decision making out of our middle third. And I think with all of that, it's going to bring the question of how to utilize those substitution windows in that final game against Australia. So I think making that substitution out of injury necessity with Sonnet and Davidson, obviously Emma Hayes not wanting to take, any type of, wrong precaution when it comes to making sure that players are okay in this tournament, because it's a lot of games in quick succession. But I like the fact that she didn't actually utilize as many substitutions as she did from game 1 to game 2. So we'll see how that affects them moving forward.
The U.S. will take on Australia in match day 3. We will talk about that in this episode a little bit later along and how those subs may affect it. But with the injury to Davidson, Darian, and Sonnet coming in, is there concern from you at all regarding Tierna Davidson's health?
There's always concern when a player goes out like that. She looked like she was gingerly walking off. I'm not going to speculate as to what it was, but she is a force for this team. She's left-footed. She's been really solid in that position. She's very smart on the ball. Her ability to break lines and seamlessly play direct into players' feet and those little chip balls over the top. I think we've seen a lot of chemistry build between her and Girma specifically. These players haven't had that much time together to really build a relationship. Both have been in and out due to injury and different formations. It's just asked different questions for different partnerships, but I think they have those spots on lock. So to see Davidson go out in a game like this where early in the first half, we saw them get pulled apart, get stretched, have to rely on their 1v1 abilities a little bit more than we usually do. I thought it was good to see them have to work through that together. So it does suck that she's out. I hope that she's okay and it's just a knock. They're being really precautionary going into for the rest of the match and going into the next match. And hopefully she'll be okay and healthy and be able to sustain playing. But I do think Emily Sonnet came in. She did really well. This is a really experienced player. She plays in the midfield and the back line. She knows what she's getting into. She's played Germany many times. So I think it's not like for like, but Emily Sonnet brings that veteran leadership that I think is very solid. And also just the energy that Sonnet has is intimidating to play against. And I think that's really good to have in the back line where you kind of have a really high-strung, chaotic player that's not afraid to go into tackles, that's not afraid to yell and kind of incite a little bit more fire in this team. So it's a totally different player, but I don't think the level dropped off in any way.
High-strung, chaotic player. Emily Sonnet, you win that award today for this match. I like it. I like it. But you're not wrong, Darian. The element that Sonnet brings to the second half of this game is composure, though. She did us a really good job of dictating the tempo of this match and being a lockdown defender. And her and Germa looked to kind of pick up right where they had left off before. And they really haven't played a lot of time together in those center back positions. So Sonnet coming in off the bench at the end of the first half is not good for Davidson, but good for Sonnet. I think she looked really good. And if we're seeing any kind of soft subs and like making sure that players are being taken care of, we even think back to the first match for the U.S. against Zambia. Sophia Smith went out in the first half. She ends up starting this match, playing 85 minutes. And she starts the scoring for the United States. 10 minutes into this match, Sophia Smith gets on the board first for the United States, an incredible way down the right flank, Rodman and Lavelle combining, and it's ultimately just such an easy tap in for Smith. That's the opening goal. I'm going to look at just the first 26 minutes of this first half. Sophia Smith scores in the 10th minute. Julia Gavin equalizes for Germany, the right back, in the 22nd minute. And then in the 26th minute, Mallory Swanson doubles the lead for the United States and takes them up 2-1 for Swanson's third goal of the tournament. But Sophia Smith got things started. Sandra, I'm going to throw to you about some of these goals and the way that the U.S. was working in the attack. What impressed you?
How ready Soph Smith looked for this moment. I think for me, I think there's been a layer of pressure that has been placed upon the shoulders of these particular players. There's been it's been a long time that there's been a loud contingency that's been calling for a changing of the guard, especially when it comes to that attacking line. The knowing that the player pool has players who are capable of, being clinical in transition, and that has typically been the names of Swanson and Rodman, and particularly Smith, when it comes to moving forward in this next era. So, but with that, comes a layer of pressure. And I think it's one thing to kind of get out and come out swinging against a Zambia side that a lot of us have so much respect for, because we watch Barbara Banda and Rachel Kundananji week in, week out. And it's another to maybe take a look at how this program has fared going up against European competition, which over the last recent years hasn't been ideal. And so to have the level of confidence that she has had going into this Olympics, and then having the type of performance that she did against a German side that I think people thought that they were going to really struggle against, absolutely incredible. I'm thrilled for her.
I'm thrilled too, Sandra. I think you said it really well. It's so fun to see this young trio just find their groove with each other. They really balance each other out well, but I have to say Smith today just proved why she got that position. She brings so much more than a hold-up 9. You see her muscling people, getting through the defense. She doesn't give up, even if there's kind of a wonky touch. She's still on the other end of it, anticipating what's happening next. And you know what? She's taking shots, even if they're half chances. This is how Swanson got on the scoreboard. She is weaving her way through defenders, opts to shoot it herself. Swanson follows up. But none of this happens unless Sophia Smith has that bite and the fight going against defenders for her. So I'm really happy she's getting the credit she deserves, because I think the World Cup, Sandra, you're right, there was so much pressure and eyes on her going into that tournament that I think it stifled her. It affected her confidence. And now we're seeing her just come into this, I think, letting all of that go and just playing her game. So I love it. I hope we see her just keep excelling at this rate and just keep building on this confidence and this kind of bully that she's become in the front line for the US.
I love it. A little bit of a bully, a little bit of bully action. Sophia Smith, she ends up with a brace in the first 45 minutes for the United States, taking the score to 3-1 for the U.S. ahead of Germany heading into the break. And that's just the second time ever that the United States has scored 3 goals in the first half. Twice, first against Zambia in match day 1, and now, of course, against Germany. That's it. The U.S. are rolling at this point and looks pretty similar to the first half against Germany in getting 3 goals before the break. But then the question came down to, how was the U.S. going to keep their foot on the gas pedal heading into the second 45? What was Germany going to do to bring out in the second half to test the United States, to build out of their mid to low block that they have? And how is Germany going to continue to fight in this match? Because we know that they're going to do that, but not all the time. We're going to see it coming up. We are chatting so much more about the United States and their 4-1 win over Germany as they head to the top of their group after match day 2 against Germany. Don't go anywhere though, because we are breaking it all down, everything that happened between US and Germany, and of course all the other groups stage matches that have happened. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back after this very quick break. Hey, welcome back to Attacking Third. The U.S. defeat Germany 4-1 in match day 2 to jump to the top of Group B standings at the Paris Olympics. Plus, the U.S. punched their ticket to the knockout stage of the Olympics only after 2 match days. Not too shabby. Alongside Sandra and Darian, I'm Lisa. Okay, let's talk a little bit about this second half because we did not see any subs from Emma Hayes' side heading into the second 45 minutes. Only the one change at the end of the first half, Sonnet coming in for Davidson. But there was a bit of change in how the U.S. played in the second 45. They looked to be controlling a lot of the match. Sandra, when you think about what happened in the second half, it kind of what stood out to you about how the United States was playing, considering there were absolutely no sub changes?
I like that they tried to hold possession a little bit more. I think coming out of that half, you have to take a look at how they operated in the first 45. The fact that they were going into that second half with the lead, knowing that there weren't any extra halftime substitutions that were made, unlike with that first match where we saw players coming in and out right at the start of the half. I can't give enough praise for the game plan today. So I like that they did a good effective combination of trying to build a little bit upon what they had given themselves in that first half. But I also respect that they tried to play a little bit with Germany, maybe in that opening stretch of maybe 5 to 10 minutes, just to also see what Germany was going to try to give them themselves. Because there's two teams on the pitch. The Germans also tried to make their adjustments themselves. But I also want to point out the back line a little bit because I think they had a really good shift in making sure that the team kept that momentum going to start off that second half. I thought Emily Fox did a really good job with switches that were made. Just whoever they were putting in front of her, she was shutting down. And sometimes that kind of helps spearhead and facilitates the attacks. And that also helps to set the tone as well. So I like that the back line didn't lose any momentum either going to start up the second half.
I was really impressed with Sam Coffey in the second half between the first whistle in the second half until like the 70th minute because she did a really good job of controlling the tempo for the United States and doing it in really effective ways with switching the point of attack and moving urgently, but Coffey was never rushed and she had patience in the play and what she was doing, but she was still really crisp on the ball and there was no sloppiness. She has this really good balance and we didn't really get to see it for Coffey when the U.S. played against Zambia, but against this Germany side, they had a lot of possession and they controlled a lot of this match throughout it. Darian, we did ultimately get to see some more goals come in the second 45 minutes, but it didn't come until late in the second half when Lynn Williams subbed onto this match. But throughout, between like the start of the second half and ultimately when the goals came in the 85th, 86th, 87th minute, more opportunities from Lynn Williams. Did you expect more from the U.S. during that stretch?
No, I thought they did well. Lisa and I got to watch the game together, so we have similar thoughts. But I thought that they held possession well. They weren't forcing a lot of their opportunities that we saw them do against Zambia, where it just looked like they were getting impatient. For Zambia, sitting a little bit low, trying to lock them out. Germany had moments where they were in at that mid to low block, more of a low block at certain points when US had a lot of possession. But they were patient. They were swinging the ball around. There was good combination play to whip balls in. They were getting corners. They looked like they were trying, but they weren't forcing it. So I think that was a testament of the growth, even just between the game against Zambia to the game that we saw just now. So I was here for it. I like it. I think one of the players that stood out to me, though, in the front line that was consistent throughout the match was Trinity Rodman. I think her role kind of changes between game to game, whether it's, hey, everything's going to go through her. We're going to send her 1v1. She's going to get fouls. She's going to get crosses off or we're just going to isolate her to free up everybody else and we want her to combine to swing the ball around. So for me, she was a player that I think won't get the credit she deserves because she wasn't on the score sheet tonight, but not a lot of those goals happen without her and her work rate, especially defensively. Mind you, this girl had a goal line clearance between. There was a lot of chaos where Germany had an opportunity in the 6-yard box. The ball is bouncing around and Rodman was all the way back at the 6 to get it off the goal line and move it up the field. So I think this is a player that's been an unsung hero for me in this match. It's crazy because Trinity Rodman was just, I mean,
Unsung about her.
Yeah.
Delicious.
but
Delicious.
she wasn't
I
on the
thought she
court.
was phenomenal. Like absolutely just a facilitator in every sense of the word. I mean, even with that goal line clearance that you shouted out, Darian, it was just like the presence of mind to just always stay locked on, to know that you have to get in good positioning, even when what's asked of you is to kind of be that creator and be that attacking presence. Like just having to stay on all the time, knowing that you're going to possibly have to be called upon to help aid your keeper as a forward. Like absolutely incredible game from her today.
Yeah, I liked Rodman's play up top, of course. Swanson, though, is just in the front line. Swanson, for me, when she drops in a little bit deeper into the midfield and she can turn at the back line and really utilize the space that is between the defensive line and the midfield line of the opposition, it's when she cooks. It's when she does such a good job. And Rodman and Smith do a really fascinating job of reading the play and understanding when to make those runs a little bit deeper and how to cut inside and where the ball should be played. And that partnership between the three of them is continuing to grow, and it is so impressive to watch. I want to chat a little bit about Germany, because heading into this Olympics tournament, they were without their midfielder, Lena Oberdorf, who suffered a big ACL injury. So they brought in some other players to try to solidify what was going to happen in the midfield, including Janina Minga. But Alex Pop, we saw playing in this midfield and a little deeper, Sandra. We don't usually see Pop that deep. She's so much more effective higher up the field. What did you make of that game plan for Germany?
Look, I think you could go back and look at this and say maybe they were outcoached a little bit. I think this is also the game that Germany found themselves maybe just trying some things. This is the game that they were potentially going to find themselves exposed in the absence of Alina Oberdorf, right? We saw a very exciting match day one against Australia, maybe quelling some doubts. Like they're going to manage this Olympics just fine without Alina Oberdorf. And I still think that they have the ability to do that. But this was going to always be the game that maybe really tested that theory about how this team was going to look in her absence. And I think we saw a bit of that today. The coaching staff felt that the best option against the United States women's national team was to take their prolific attacker, their striker, and kind of move her lower because she has the ability to play lower, but it did not pan out for them the way that they expected it. And I think it was a little bit of a high risk, high reward. What are you going to lose when you move Pop lower for the Germans? And I think we saw that today. Now, obviously, they've got a final game in front of them. I don't think we're going to see that moving forward because she's also a player that took a bit of punishment throughout this game, and how she's going to fare after being subbed out. Her availability for match day 3, I think, is maybe going to come into question as well. But I think it was disappointing, I think, in the end, to have kind of made that gamble a little bit for Germany, because it did not pay dividends.
I agree. Disappointing. And their game plan, I understood the theory behind it. You sit in a mid block, you try to lock out this 3-back and expose the big gaps that are in between Fox, Germa, Davidson / Sonnet. I thought that was really smart. The only thing is, this front line for the U.S. is not to be played with. You cannot gamble in the back against these three, whether it's them combining or a long ball, quick transition. They're going to punish you. So I think Germany had to be so much more Loctite defensively and in the middle of the park in order to shut the U.S. down, shut that service down to the forwards. So it's tough. And Sandra, I think you said it really well. I think moving Pop to that 6th position just lost them so much more in the attack, where I felt there were moments where they could have built a little bit more. The goal came from a ball coming from Pop. She gets clobbered by Coffey. It's laid off, and Vin has a brilliant finish. But I don't think a lot of that happens if Pop's not higher up the pitch, and they really needed her to be.
Yeah, I appreciate that take on Germany so well. And the fact that their only goal came from their right back is not great. That, as a forward, Darian, you don't like to hear that, right? Like, you want your teammates
to get out of my space. Let me take the shot.
Exactly. Yes, it's great. I mean, shout out to defenders getting goals, but as a front line and for Germany, that's not good enough for them heading into the second half of match day. Well, US top their Group B standings with their second win of the group stage over Germany 4-1. Don't go anywhere. We are chatting so much more about match day 2. Hey, welcome back to Attacking Third. Match day 2 of the Paris 2024 Olympics. Women's soccer has concluded, and there was a lot of chaos that happened. Let's start with Group A. Elsewhere in this tournament with Colombia, France, New Zealand, and Canada. This group had a lot of fun throughout this matches. Colombia took on New Zealand, and they get the 2-0 win, topping the group with 3 points ahead of France just on that goal differential. Meanwhile, France took on Canada. This match happening at the same time as the United States, and Canada end up with the win. A late game winner from Vanessa Gilles at the end to give Canada the 2-1 win over France. That was pretty exciting to watch that match after France took the initial lead. Canada comes from behind and ends up getting 2 goals. Colombia at the top of Group A. Sandra, I just want to give you some props here for this one. You called them your dark horse. Are you impressed with Colombia so far?
Called them my dark horse, and yet here they are on top of the group. What a second match day. Match day 2 brought layers of chaos and excitement today, and Colombia, I think, was no doubt, I think, motivated a bit by the game that they had against the tournament hosts. They were relentless in that game, but unfortunately walked away with 0 points and a loss against France. But I think we saw some continuity there. We saw them build a little bit on that momentum that they sustained against France, and they didn't have Ramirez in this one, who was suffered a red card, so unavailable. And how are you going to adjust to that? What is going to be the response? Well, the response is to go out and get a win. So they win, and they did that against New Zealand, and now here they are, potentially setting themselves up for a very definitive final match day against Canada. It's going to be very exciting because obviously we've been keeping an eye on Canada and everything that they've been going through as well, and we'll touch on that in a little bit. But you have to wonder if maybe they are sort of finding themselves as a team that is growing in line with this tournament as it continues, because to go and kind of see that growth from match day 1 to match day 2, what are they going to bring for match day 3? It's a little scary to think about facing a full strength Colombia.
Exactly. I mean, Colombia looks scary right now. Darian, for France, they're in second place right now in this group. Is this good enough for them?
No, it's just not. Sadly, it just never is. We have the same conversation every tournament for France. They are yacked. They should be dominating teams, in my opinion. It's just a matter of putting their chances away, and they don't. And teams sneak in. I mean, this is not an easy group by any means. And shout out to Sandra. You called Colombia. I love it. I think that they absolutely deserve it. We've seen this program grow a lot over the last couple of years, and it's good to see them finally getting the recognition and the results that they deserve. Putting in a full 90 performance. I mean, this is tough because yeah, France, you're the host nation. All eyes are on you. I don't know if it's the pressure of being the host nation for these Olympics, the pressure of your coach is going to leave and what that means for the players on the team. But there has to be this mental block that they need to get over, because they should be winning out of this group, in my opinion.
Got to
Well,
be
we'll see.
better.
One more match day to go for all of these groups. But for Group A, it'll be Canada taking on Colombia on Wednesday and New Zealand against France. Okay, let's take a look at Group C, because this is another group in this tournament that looking pretty good right now for Spain. They top the group with Japan, Brazil, and Nigeria. But for these matches, Spain, they took on Japan in match day 1, and in match day 2, they defeated Nigeria 1-0 for the Spanish side. 1 goal for Spain in that match, when they probably coulda, shoulda had a few more. Meanwhile, Brazil, they took on Japan and fell 1-2. Japan got the win ultimately over Brazil, and that's why they sit second in this group standings. Sandra, does any of this kind of what stands out to you, I should say, in this Group C standings and things that have gone so far over there in match day 2?
Elisa, I was so ready to come on here and just be so loud for South Americans, and I cannot, because Brazil, unfortunately, kind of dropped the ball a little bit today, quite literally. What an incredible group. I think that's part of the beauty of these Olympics. There's fewer teams in competition. It's a quicker tournament, tighter turnaround, and it sets up moments like we've seen across the board of all the matches today. I wouldn't be surprised if 3 of the knockout round teams come from this group, and I think have to give credit to Spain. They came into this tournament with the target on their backs, and teams are bringing their best games for Spain, and we're going to have to see that again, probably from Brazil, who are by no means secure in their position to advance because of all of the other results taking place around the groups on match day 2. So kudos to Nigeria for hanging tough, but Spain just having that kind of informed clinical advantage to find a way and get it done and get all 3 points. So I'm very curious to see who does come out of this group and how the final match day will go.
It's so tough. My heart broke for Nigeria today. They create the opportunities going forward, defend tooth and nail for their lives, life and limb on the line, but it just doesn't come together in their front line and their ability to put their chances away, because they can actually, I thought that they were going to play spoiler to teams in this group. I really did. Yes, they held teams to 1-0, but if you can't get a win, you can't get a tie, you're not affecting this group enough. And I feel for Nigeria to keep advancing, that just as a country, as a federation, for these players who are fighting so hard, they have to have some result come together in these standings, and it just hasn't yet. So my heart breaks for them. I thought that they were going to be a little bit more effective in this tournament.
They did so well. Nigeria holding Spain scoreless until the 85th minute when Alexia Putellas got the one goal to be enough to lift Spain over Nigeria. And that also qualifies Spain for the quarterfinals. They were the first team to do it. And then the United States, getting their 4-1 win over Germany, became the second team that has punched their tickets out of the group stage into the knockout round. Don't go anywhere. We've got plenty more of the Olympics women's football tournament coverage for you right here on Attacking Third. Don't go anywhere. Hey, welcome back to Attacking Third. This has been a very eventful Olympics tournament so far for the women's soccer programs. But one of the biggest stories, unfortunately, does not come from the field. It comes from off the field in Canada soccer. On July 22nd, a Canadian staff member, Joseph Lombardi, was caught using drones to film New Zealand's closed training sessions. That staff member was detained by police, and the footage on the drone revealed that Canada had spied on New Zealand training on July 19th. So that's 2 match days before and 2 training sessions. Ultimately, staff member Joseph Lombardi and supervisor, the assistant coach Jasmine Mander, were sent home. Bev Priestman, the head coach for the Canadian women's national team, recused herself from the New Zealand match. But as this investigation has continued to unfold, the incident revealed systemic spying, which has led to the following sanctions. Canada women's national team docked 6 points at the 2024 Olympics. Bev Priestman, the head coach, suspended from any football-related activity for 1 year. Lombardi and Mander were also suspended, and Canada Soccer was fined 200,000 Canadian dollars. But a lot of this coming down and falling onto the shoulders of the current women's national team, who are docked 6 points coming into today's match day, minus 3 points in the standings. They did get the win over France. That does help them. But Darian, I mean, there's a lot to unpack here, but let's talk about it from the player's perspective. How much of this is affecting them in the fallout and the punishment that Canada Soccer is facing?
Yo, to set them back this far as the defending Olympic gold medalists is heartbreaking. You dream of being in these moments as a young kid to represent your country and play in the Olympics. And for you to work the last 4 years or for however long, this is some players' first Olympics, to make this team to get to this stage at this moment. And it's thrown, I mean, a lot of it's thrown away and set back for you due to your coaching staff spying on arguably the weakest team in the tournament is devastating. That is absolutely devastating. It's not only ruined these players' experience, their setup success of going into this tournament, which I believe Canada can overcome this. I think these players are talented enough. They have enough grit. It wasn't the players' fault that this happened. But I mean, how embarrassing, how heartbreaking that is a reason why you have a setback in this tournament due to cheating. You're spying on New Zealand going into your match.
It's
My heart
terrible.
also breaks for the New Zealand players. I think they should have been given 3 points from that match. The fact that they weren't given anything is a little bit wild to me, knowing that these players probably saw footage without their knowledge that it was spied upon or gained knowledge going against New Zealand that helped them win this game and beat them. It's tough for me. It's heartbreaking for the players on both sides.
So, Sandra, how do you give punishment to Canada Soccer for this without affecting the players?
I don't think there was ever going to be some type of consequence that was going to get handed down that didn't affect the players in some capacity. The fact that this was even, an occurrence and a headline to begin with automatically affected the players. So the second that headline dropped, the second that assistant coach and those staffers were linked and held by authorities, within that second, it became an issue within the program as the Olympic Games were getting set to kick off. So in terms of how consequences were going to get handed down, even if there was nothing directly, sanctioned by the players or any banishment in that aspect, it was just the head coach and some of the staffers at this point, it was always going to affect the players. Now, in terms of the points, that is where it gets, I think, all of those very bad feelings, because to be docked those points after going out and getting that win, that starts to lay on the consequence that where the players feel that directly. And, folks are going to go back and forth, right? Us included, on these shows about how cheating took place and what it looked like or may have, looked like for Canada Soccer over the course of these certain stretches of games and international windows. And the real question isn't so much like, oh, well, the players aren't the ones who cheated, but they're the ones being punished. And it's also the other side of that coin where it's like, well, while they're not the ones out there going out and flying drones or anything like that, they have coaches and have received coaching from people who did. And that is the unfortunate truth and inconvenient truth here at play. And there's still the investigation that's actually ongoing. So it almost sort of feels like this is almost like a secondary set of consequences. I think the preliminary consequences were the fact that those coaches got sent home. Beth Priestman was sent away from the tournament, and then we got the bans. So it's almost like there might be some more that comes here. It just happened. There just happens to be an Olympic Games that are taking place right now where they had to give some sort of immediate consequence, and it came in the way of points. And it's wild to think about how that math is going to pan out, because the 6 points took away that win in the beginning, and ultimately they're at 0 now going into match day 3. So there was always going to be a set of consequences handed down. I think the fact that the Olympics are in progress at this moment, there was a sense of urgency to make sure that they gave some sort of consequence immediately. So whether that's, painful or very harsh in some people's opinion, I mean, that's why we talk about sport, right? People get to say their feelings about it, but a consequence had to be given. And unfortunately, this is the way that it came.
Yeah, this all really unfolded match day 1 of the Olympic tournament for Canada. So there is an immediate sense of urgency of, okay, what do we do? Because their first game is against New Zealand, which is where the footage came from. And Darian, you mentioned, hey, give New Zealand 3 points. So then I agree. I think that there's an element of like, okay, that's a win for New Zealand, a 3-0 win for them. They get 3 points. They get a 3-goal differential in the group. But then do they not play that game and they get a rest?
What do you think? You think that they should have not
I think
played? Canada forfeits?
I think it should be a Canada forfeit because what are you playing it for then? A scrimmage?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, look, I do wonder if maybe they were hopeful that some of their proactive decisions might have maybe helped ease some of the potential consequences that may have come. Like Bev Priestman removed herself like immediately, maybe
Yeah.
in the hopes that they wouldn't have to find themselves forfeiting or receiving such harsh consequences. But unfortunately, wrong move, thought wrong.
Today, head coach for Canada women's national team, Bev Priestman, put out a statement saying, quote, "I'm absolutely heartbroken for the players, and I would like to apologize from the bottom of my heart for the impact this situation has had on all of them. I know they worked very hard." She continues to say to Canada, "I'm sorry, you've been my home and a country I've fallen in love with. I hope you will continue to support these extremely talented and hardworking players. In the meantime, I will be cheering from afar. Canada soccer, go out today and show the world what you're made of." Very interesting to remove yourself as a coach and then kind of put this out and say, like, "I'm sorry, I would like to apologize for the impact of this situation." It's a little interesting how this came out, but it did drop before Canada took the field against France, and ultimately they get the 2-1 win. It felt like, Sandra, there's almost a sense of the players for Canada being like, we can do this. Like, they have a rejuvenated spirit now. How does that affect them, like, emotionally heading into that match against France?
I mean, at this point, you have to give all the credit to the players. They have multiple members of their coaching staff who are gone. They themselves have had to probably regroup as a collective as players, maybe even without some of the remainder of their technical staff and coaching staff, and tragically kind of find themselves trauma bonding together probably a little bit in this moment. I mean, we see it, I think, in the body language of the performances they're trying to go out there and perform on the pitch. But it is an absolutely tough, difficult position to find themselves in. The fact that Christine Sinclair, who was retired from this team, has come out with a statement in support of these players. Vanessa Gilles being so honest and sharing the vulnerability of how it's affecting them, having lost sleep, not eating correct. Those are things that you need to do as a professional athlete to perform on the biggest stages. So the fact we know verbatim that this is affecting them in these negative ways, and yet they're still going out there to compete in a manner in which they are the reigning gold medalist, I think is very admirable. And I feel for them because, once again, the actions of others have affected the players, and that's not something that is uncommon that we've seen in the women's game. And so here we are again talking about it in that capacity. So we'll see if they still have enough of what they've generated over first match, second match, enough to get them into the final match.
Yeah, we'll see. Canada, they pick up their second win of the tournament over France. Plenty more to come, though. We will be chatting about this on Attacking Third on Monday when we are back in studio and everything else that has unfolded around Canada soccer. Don't go anywhere, though. We are talking about U.S. as they take on Australia. We're going to quickly preview that when we get back for match day 3. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to Attacking Third. U.S. defeat Germany 4-1 in match day 2. They've qualified themselves to advance out of the group stage into the knockout round before match day 3, which is Wednesday. The U.S. will take on Australia. Australia, a side right now that is down, but they are not out of this group. Currently, they are they're the best third place team, so they have a chance to advance, but if things go Australia's way on Wednesday, they could still get second place in the group and advance out of it with better standings. Darian, I'll start with you. What do you need to see the U.S. build on from this Germany game into the Australian match on Wednesday?
Well, Australia is about to go ham. I mean, 6-5 is a wild game. I think they're going to bring that energy going against the U.S. because what do you got to lose? You have to come out swinging against the United States and try to put some away. And I think from the first minute, that's what we'll see. So the U.S. needs to be really locked tight defensively. I think that 3-back, we saw some spacing issues that caused a bit of concern against Germany. And Australia has fast, dynamic front line. Yes, they're missing Sam Kerr, but they have a lot of other players that can bring energy going forward. So I think our midfield needs to lock in, make sure we're not allowing penetrating passes going forward, and that 3-back needs to be really organized and tight going against Australia.
Ooh, I like it. All right, Sandra, what do you need to see from the U.S. against Australia?
Just bring the scoring, keep it going. Obviously, Australia wants to concede some goals this tournament, and maybe they just might do that against the United States. So hopefully we get to see, again, the continuity of everything that's been building up to this moment, and we get to see some more goals for USA.
It's always a battle when Australia goes against the United States. We'll see. Australia coming off a big 6-5 win over Zambia, crazy. And the United States coming off a 4-1 win over Germany. The U.S. have qualified for the knockout rounds. They currently top Group B in the Olympic standings, and they did it with emphatic points against Germany today. 4 goals, a brace for Sophia Smith, a goal for Mallory Swanson, and a goal for Lynn Williams gets the job done for the United States. Thanks everyone so much for joining us. Don't forget, we are live on YouTube following every single U.S. Olympic match. So join us there, plus on Golazo Network. We'll be back in studio on Monday to talk about the Olympics and so much more. We'll see you then.